The recycled air of flight UA392 from Chicago to San Francisco felt particularly stale that morning. I'd managed to secure an aisle seat in row 17, my preferred spot, close enough to the middle of the plane to avoid both the bathroom traffic and the noise from the engines. I settled in, already calculating how many hours of sleep I might steal on this 4-hour journey, when I noticed him. Row 2, Seat A, window seat in first class. There was nothing particularly remarkable about him at first glance, a man in his 60s, perhaps early 70s, with a weathered face and silver hair combed neatly to the side. He wore a simple navy blazer over a white button-down shirt, no tie. What caught my attention wasn't his appearance, but his stillness. In the choreographed chaos of boarding, people stuffing oversized bags into undersized compartments, children whining, business people barking final instructions into phones, he sat motionless, gazing out the small oval window. "Sir, would you like something to drink before takeoff?" A flight attendant leaned toward him, her practiced smile unwavering. The man turned slowly, as if emerging from deep contemplation, and shook his head. No words, just a gentle decline. I only noticed this exchange because I was standing in the aisle, waiting for a family of 5 to negotiate their seating arrangement further ahead. The flight attendant's smile faltered for just a moment before she moved on. Something about the interaction struck me as odd, but I was too preoccupied with my own comfort to give it much thought. "Excuse me, that's my seat." A voice pulled me. From my observations, a young woman with oversized headphones gestured to the middle seat in my row. "Oh, sorry." I stepped into the aisle to let her in, and when I looked back toward the front of the plane, my view of row 2 was blocked. The pre-flight routine unfolded with its familiar predictability. Safety demonstrations ignored, electronic devices reluctantly powered down, the gradual push back from the gate. I closed my eyes, hoping to drift off before we even reached cruising altitude. But sleep eluded me, my mind inexplicably drawn back to the man in row 2. Why did he seem so out of place? Perhaps it was how deliberately he moved, or the absence of any carry-on luggage. No laptop bag, no book, not even a phone that I could see. In an age where everyone seemed perpetually tethered to a device, his empty hands were a strange anomaly. The plane climbed steadily through cloud cover, and the captain's voice crackled through the cabin, announcing our flight path and expected arrival time, standard information delivered in the standard way. I shifted in my seat, trying to find a position that might invite sleep, when a flight attendant's voice cut through the white noise of the engines. "Is there a doctor on board? If there's a medical professional on this flight, please press your call button." A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin. I straightened in my seat, craning my neck to see what was happening. 3 rows ahead, a call button light illuminated, and a woman stood up, identifying herself as a nurse. She was directed toward the front of the plane, toward first class, toward row 2. The young woman beside me, who had removed her headphones at the announcement, caught my eye. "I hope everything's okay," she said. I nodded, feigning the appropriate level of concern, while curiosity burned inside me. "I think it's the older gentleman in first class," I found myself saying. "He seemed different when we were boarding." "Different? How?" she asked. I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious about my observation. "Just quiet. Very still." For the next 15 minutes, there was a controlled commotion at the front of the plane. Flight attendants moved with purpose between the galley and first class, their professional demeanors intact, but with a new urgency in their steps. Passengers exchanged theories in hushed tones, the temporary community of the concerned forming and dissolving in the recycled air. Then something unexpected happened. The captain's voice returned, but this time it lacked the polished professionalism of the standard announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Mitchell speaking. I need your attention for a moment. The cabin fell silent. We have a situation that requires us to divert our flight. We'll be landing at Denver International Airport in approximately 40 minutes. I apologize for any inconvenience, but I assure you this decision is necessary. The plane banked slightly to the left, our trajectory already adjusting to the new destination. Questions erupted throughout the cabin. Was it an emergency landing? A security threat? The flight attendants moved through the aisles, their reassurances, a chorus of "everything is under control," and no cause for alarm, but no one explained why we were diverting. No one mentioned the man in row 2. I leaned back in my seat, watching as the flight attendants huddled near the front galley, speaking in lowered voices. The nurse who had responded to the call returned to her seat, and I fought the urge to get up and ask her what was happening. Something told me that whatever was unfolding, it was more than a simple medical emergency. As the plane began its descent toward Denver, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The initial anxiety had given way to something else, a shared curiosity, a collective holding of breath. We were all part of something unexpected now, our individual journeys temporarily suspended as we diverted toward a mystery none of us understood. Just before touchdown, I caught a glimpse of row 2. The man was still there, still gazing out the window, his profile outlined against the bright Colorado sky. But now there was something different about him, or perhaps about how others were treating him. The flight attendants hovered nearby, their attention focused on him with an intensity that seemed beyond normal concern for a passenger's well-being. As the wheels touched down on the Denver runway, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was witnessing something significant, though I had no idea what it might be. All I knew was that an ordinary flight had become extraordinary because of one quiet man who had boarded without fanfare and now commanded the attention of the entire crew. The seatbelt sign dinged off, but the captain's voice immediately followed. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened. We'll be taxiing to a special location, and I ask for your continued patience." The young woman beside me shifted nervously. "Do you think it's something serious, like a security issue?" I shook my head, not out of certainty, but instinct. "No," I said, surprising myself with my conviction. "It's something else, something about that man." Little did I know how right I was, and how unprepared I was for what would happen next. If you're as curious as I was to discover who the mysterious man in row 2 really was, don't miss what happens next. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to never miss any of our stories based on real events. The revelation coming up will completely change your perspective on who might be sitting next to you on your next flight. Leave a like to support the channel and keep watching. As our aircraft taxied away from the main terminal at Denver International, the cabin buzzed with speculation. Through my window, I spotted something unusual. 3 black SUVs waiting on the tarmac, far from the emergency vehicles you'd expect for a medical diversion. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice returned, "we'll be parked here for approximately 30 minutes before continuing to San Francisco. Please remain seated." Melissa, the young woman beside me, raised an eyebrow. 30 minutes? That's oddly specific for an emergency. She was right. This was planned. I watched as 2 flight attendants approached row 2. Their demeanor had changed completely, professional distance replaced by something like deference. The man rose from his seat, and I saw him fully for the first time. Tall and lean, with a straight posture that defied his years. He buttoned his blazer with deliberate grace. Then something unprecedented happened. Captain Mitchell emerged from the cockpit. In 15 years of flying, I'd never seen a captain leave during an unscheduled stop. Yet there he was, walking directly to row 2, extending his hand to the elderly passenger. The cabin fell silent. This man was important, critically important, Passengers pressed against windows as the aircraft door opened and a small group of serious-looking individuals approached from below. "Who is he?" Melissa whispered. The answer came from a passenger 3 rows ahead who gasped loudly, "That's Senator James Westbrook." The name hit me like a physical force. Senator Westbrook, the former Secretary of State who negotiated the Ankara peace accords, the elder statesman who had reportedly been battling aggressive cancer. "He doesn't look sick," Melissa observed, watching him stand confidently with the Captain. Before departing, the senator turned to face us all. A flight attendant handed him a microphone, and the cabin fell completely silent. "I apologize for interrupting your journey." His voice resonated with practiced authority. "What I'm about to share will be on the news within hours, but you deserve to hear it first." He paused, and I found myself leaning forward. 2 weeks ago, I learned the Ankara peace accords were in danger of collapse. I was asked to intervene, unofficially, quietly. This morning, after 18 hours of virtual negotiations, we reached a new understanding. The accords will hold. He allowed himself a small smile. "I'm being escorted to Washington to brief the president." A collective breath escaped from the cabin. This wasn't about illness. It was about diplomacy conducted in secret, peace maintained through quiet determination. "I chose commercial travel deliberately," he continued. "Sometimes the most important work happens without fanfare. Sometimes it happens in row 2 of a regular United flight." As he descended to the waiting vehicles, spontaneous applause erupted. Throughout the plane, genuine recognition that we had become unexpected participants in history. The motorcade pulled away, leaving row 2 empty, a void that somehow felt more significant than any presence could have been. Senator Westbrook's identity reveal was just the beginning of this extraordinary story. How did this unexpected encounter transform the narrator's life, and what can we all learn from it? Subscribe now for more stories like this one that show how historical moments can happen in the most ordinary places. If you've ever experienced something surprising during your travels, share it in the comments. Hit the bell to be notified when our next video drops, and keep watching for the conclusion. The journey to San Francisco became a shared experience of excitement and disbelief. Passengers who had been strangers hours before now exchanged contact information, united by our brush with history. "He boarded with just a diplomatic passport," a flight attendant revealed. "The captain was only told to maintain normal protocols unless something changed." "What changed?" someone asked. "The call came over Nebraska, direct from the State Department. They needed him in Washington immediately." As we descended into San Francisco, I couldn't stop thinking about how differently I'd viewed the man in row 2 when I first noticed him, just an elderly passenger whose stillness had momentarily caught my attention. How quickly perception shifts when context is revealed. In the terminal, televisions were already broadcasting the breaking news. Senator Westbrook secretly negotiates peace deal revival. Footage showed the black SUVs arriving at a military airfield where a government jet waited. I paused, watching travelers cluster around the screens. "That's old-school diplomacy," a businessman commented beside me. "No Twitter announcements, no press conferences until the work is done." "He was on my flight," I heard myself saying. "We diverted to Denver so he could get to Washington." The man looked at me with skeptical surprise. "No kidding! What was that like?" How could I explain the strange gravity of that quiet man, the ripple of recognition, the privilege of hearing world-changing news directly from its source? "It was a reminder," I finally said, "that important things often happen right in front of us without announcement." "You know," he replied thoughtfully, "in all my years flying, I only notice other passengers when they're annoying me. Maybe I should pay more attention. Perhaps that was the most significant outcome of our unexpected detour, this small shift in perspective. A reminder to look beyond our immediate concerns, to recognize that each person carries their own story, their own mission." 6 months later, on another flight, I found myself studying my fellow passengers with new curiosity. The nervous woman, clutching a manila envelope, the man whose fingers never stopped moving, the elderly couple communicating without words. Each contained a universe of possibilities, each potentially carrying responsibilities I could never guess at. The man in row 2 had permanently changed how I experienced travel, not seeing obstacles to my comfort, but humans with depths I could only glimpse. My news feed showed Senator Westbrook standing alongside world leaders at the formal signing ceremony. In Ankara, the accords had been officially renewed, strengthened by new provisions. A quote from the Turkish foreign minister read, "Without Senator Westbrook's quiet intervention, we would be facing a very different situation today. Some of the most consequential diplomacy happens far from cameras." I gazed out at the clouds below, thinking about consequence, how one person's actions ripple outward to affect millions, how the most significant history sometimes unfolds not with dramatic declarations, but with quiet conversations in unexpected places, like row 2 of a regular United flight on what had started as an entirely ordinary day.